Article 20 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, every citizen addressing the European institutions is entitled to address them in one of its official languages and receive a reply in that same language. Multilingualism is therefore a fundamental precondition of participation in the democratic life of the EU. Finally, multilingualism is quite logically a part of the European institutions' day-to-day reality. The linguistic landscape reflects the EU diversity. We hold meetings and produce papers in different languages. We speak different languages every day at work. Our staff comes from 27 member states, and the institutions therefore serve as a meeting point for nationalities and cultures. TGT therefore seeks to ensure that the Commission produces clearly written documents in all the official languages. We strive for a real partnership in the legislative process, so that our linguistic expertise and translation requirements are factored in as early as possible, and so that the various language versions reflect in the clearest possible manner the will of the legislator. This is our contribution to the better regulation agenda. By fulfilling this role, we help the Commission to communicate more effectively with EU citizens and make the EU more open, accountable and democratic. Moving on to the need for a project like QUALETRA. I was recently reading a study commissioned by the European Commission on Language and Translation in International and EU Law, which was published in 2012. And this included the following statement. Both the right to personal freedom as well as the right to a fair trial are futile if the person affected cannot understand the charges raised. I consider this to be a good reflection of the very real and precarious state of affairs faced by countless people around the world, including many people within the EU. The increasing mobility of EU citizens, the increasing number of people living in countries which are not their own and sometimes facing courts which operate in languages which are not their own, the rights listed in both the EU Charter and the European Convention on Human Rights led to the need for the adoption of the EU law, of a new law like Directive 2010/64 on the right of interpretation and translation in criminal proceedings. This directive specifies the minimum concrete obligations of the Member State to ensure the right to a fair trial is protected by both the EU Charter and the European Convention on Human Rights. It is intended to facilitate in practice the application of the right to interpretation and translation for those who do not speak the language of the proceedings from the time these persons are made aware of being suspected or accused of a criminal offence until the very end of the criminal proceedings, including any appeal. To that end, the aim of this directive is to ensure that the right of suspected or accused persons to interpretation and translation in criminal proceedings with a view of ensuring the right to a fair trial. Member States are bound to implement this directive by the end of this year. The directive has therefore gone beyond the European Convention on Human Rights and turned its general provisions to specific obligations to the competent authority, which is obliged to check the language needs of the suspect or accused. Interpretation can never be waived. The Member States must make interpretation available for the persons concerned to communicate with their legal counsel on matters relating directly to any questioning or hearing during the proceedings or the lodging of an appeal. They must also provide the suspected or accused person with a written translation of essential documents as defined in the directive, in line with the Charter and the European Convention on Human Rights. These documents are listed in the article. I'm going to pass. Okay, excuse me. I'm sorry. I have this tendency to speak too fast, especially when I'm nervous, and I'm nervous. I'm sorry. So basically, do I go back? No? No, basically the documents which are listed in Article 3 have already been mentioned in the previous presentation, so I do not need to mention them again. Okay, I am going fast because this is supposed to take half an hour. Sorry. This directive then therefore follows various initiatives relating to the procedural rights of suspected and accused persons in criminal proceedings. It follows also the initiative of the establishment of the European Justice Portal, which you may have heard about, which was conceived as an electronic one-stop shop in the area of justice, and which is the largest translation project which is carried out by DGT for DigiJust. Directive 2010/64 in turn also led to the need of QUALETRA, which promotes the training of translators who specialize in criminal proceedings, and which is a project which prioritizes practical results which can be used by practitioners and policymakers in their member states. It is also the first project addressing translation issues in the judicial area. As a lawyer by training, I am well aware of the fundamental links between law and language. A lawyer, any good lawyer, knows that a careful analysis of the legal provisions is not nitpicking, but the only manner to define a law's exact scope and applicability, and the precise nature of the rights and duties which emanate from that law. One small word may actually make a huge difference. Once a language specialist asked me what the institutions meant by lawyer linguists. Why did the institutions have lawyers who were also specialized in language? And my answer to that was that all lawyers should have an affinity to language, and that lawyer linguists should actually develop that particular affinity further. To my mind, QUALETRA is a project which would serve as a basis to define the training which lawyers and magistrates can be given to improve their understanding of language needs and issues, and which linguists can be given to improve their legal knowledge. Such training could eventually be the basis of a framework of cooperation for lawyers and linguists to ensure that their clients' rights are respected. QUALETRA is of great significance in this process. It can assist member states in fully implementing the directive. It can help the translation profession prepare for this new job and be the link between lawyers and translators, providing them both with the tools necessary to ensure that their clients' rights are respected, and identifying the legal knowledge which translators need to acquire to put documents in their legal and procedural context and grasp the legal effects of the original and target text. Ultimately, QUALETRA can help to ensure that persons who do not speak or understand the language of the criminal proceedings fully exercise their right to defense and assist them in safeguarding the fairness of the proceedings. Thank you, and I'm sorry that this took much less time than it should.
Thank you very much for your very excellent timekeeping. I think now it's time for coffee break.